Welcome to the Old Fart Geeks podcast. This week on our 8th episode, we discuss a bunch of old retro tech stuff. I'm Jason Oakley, and this is my co-host, Will Tompkinson. Hey, Will.
Hey, mate. 8 weeks. Who let us off the leash?
I know, right? Who let the us out? Who?
Is that the Who or
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who?
Knock, knock. Who's there?
You know.
How's things been going?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
You've been on holiday, mate.
Yeah, well, there's that. We both had a bit of a hiatus. I was having computer problems for a while, but water cooling solved all. So
yeah, I just chucked a bucket of water over my computer when it's playing up.
I thought about that, and I thought, no, I better do it properly. So thought I've got a fish tank out there. I could just put the whole thing in the fish tank.
There you go.
But apparently, something about water and electricity doesn't mix or something. I don't know.
Understand that. Doesn't make sense, does it?
No. You think that'd make them, compatible?
Resilient, yeah. How are you supposed to take your computer underwater? What's that thing you're fiddling around with there?
Just speaking of old tech, I was actually been cleaning up the spare room for the last couple of days and digging through boxes of old stuff. And I was trying to find somewhere I have an old 9600 board modem. I did, however, find the arch enemy of anybody who had a 486 or lesser processor or tried to run Linux with this. This is a Connextent V92 56K modem. Sounds great. They didn't bother to put a processing chip on them. They then proceeded to call them a Win modem, and they basically sucked the life out of your computer.
Yep. And the CPU had to do all the compression and decompression of streams, and no driver for Linux, so screw you. I actually remember trying to set up Linux with one of those and instead shot myself in the head and became reincarnated. And this is what I came back with. You would think I picked something better, right?
No DOS drivers either. Yeah, it was... At the time, modem technology was moving pretty quick. It went from 14.4 through 28 through 33 through 48 to 56 within a couple of year period, really.
2 56s.
And
two different technologies. I worked at an ISP. We had to have a bank of modems for one and a bank of modems for the other.
Yep. And I think they were trying to cut costs because at the time, a basic like a Rockwell or a Connextent, external modem, a physical box that sat on top of your computer, plugged into the serial port.
Hayes compatible.
Yeah. You were talking at least a couple $100 for a reasonable one.
Yeah.
And I think it was about the advent of Windows 95 when that started to happen. Windows 95 was the first attempt at a true plug-and-play operating system, so...
We all know how that went, don't we?
Yeah, well, more plug, less play. But I think this was an attempt at bringing the cost down. Because it didn't have a processing chip, it literally had the bit that makes the noise. That's pretty much all this thing had. And they were cheap. I mean, you could pick up... At the time, you're paying $200, $300, $400 for an external modem. You could pick these up anywhere from from the top of my head, between $50 and $100, depending on where you went to get them and what speed you wanted and all that sort of stuff. Which was great because you could get onto the internet cheaply, except there wasn't really much of an internet. Most of the phone lines didn't support more than about 14.4 anyway. And once you actually connected with this, you could maybe play solitaire
by yourself on your local computer.
Absolutely destroy any processing power that you had. At the time I had this, I had a 486 DX4100 with 16 meg of RAM. I think it was a 120 meg hard drive or something thereabouts.
Yep.
No, it would have been 95, so it would have been a 500 meg hard drive. It had a 2 meg Trident Visa video card. This thing could play Duke 3D on full resolution under Windows at like 30 frames a second. It was fantastic. I tried to connect to the internet. I could send an email. Like, I couldn't believe, and at the time, nobody really knew that. They didn't realize this is what was causing all those problems.
And that would have been on Eudora, right? Everyone used Eudora.
Eudora, pretty much.
I loved Eudora. That was great.
What was it before Thunderbird? Mozilla something. I think, but yeah. So it was because I had a 386 SX25 running with 4 meg of RAM, running Windows 3.11 for workgroups.
Same.
That was my email server and my sort of, I guess, storage server, because it had a SCSI external card, which I had external SCSI hard drives. That had an internal PCI ISA 14.4 modem.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had connection problems. I never had performance issues. I never had any of that. I upgraded it, thought, cool, I've got a fast system now. It's great. I can do it all on the one computer. No.
Can't do jack.
And back in the day, there was a few different ways of connecting to your friends to play multiplayer games. The most common way of doing it was a direct modem connection, assuming you're not in the same room, of course. But a direct modem connection using either the 10 network, which was what Duke 3D used to use.
Yep.
And Quake in that used to use a thing called 10, where you could directly dial somebody else's computer and they'd pick up with this. And there's a few other ways of doing it, but that was the most common way.
We had fun making null modem cables and laplink compatible cables, and had this massive long serial cable that went from my room up the hallway into my friend's room.
You would have been on about the 20-meter limit there.
Yeah.
But when we first started doing that, we all had like 14.4 modems, and it was great. We could connect with each other. We could play Duke 3D and Need for Speed and Rise of the Triad and Quake and Wacky Wheels and Hexen and Hexit and Redneck Rampage and all these games. Big Red Racing. Not a problem at all. No worries. They were fast. You had no lag. It was easy to connect. Then these little things come out.
These little bastards.
And basically destroyed peer-to-peer modem connections. Because not only would they never actually talk to each other, not that you would know, because the handshake went for like 5 minutes.
Yep.
They took so much processing power to connect to each other that you couldn't do anything once you were connected anyway.
It's like when the computer tried to read from a floppy disk drive. Whole computer shuts down. I'm reading a disk. Just wait, okay? This is my limit of multitask, reading a floppy disk. Okay, I finished doing that. Let's go back again.
Heaven forbid you actually want to read from one and write to another one. So read from A drive and write to B drive. That was just... that was back in the old days of CDs, though. You couldn't actually burn a CD.
Yep.
Or so you couldn't even... Like, if you had Encarta, Microsoft Encarta that everybody had, I've probably got a dozen CDs laying around here somewhere, actually. A little tip with Encarta, no matter what you type in, if you clicked on the first link, it would eventually come back as sex. Don't ask.
Easter egg.
Yeah, same sort of deal. If you were accessing Encarta and you would load the next page, and then it would pop up that, 140 by 75 resolution video in the corner of the screen. That was it. Yeah. You had to wait until that video stopped playing and the media drive stopped reading before you could do anything else. And that was under multitasking environment like Windows 95.
Yeah.
Don't even think about it on... And yet, strangely, on something like DOS, for example, which was not known as a multitasking environment, you could very easily play, for example, Duke 3D or Full Throttle or any of the Sierra games, and once they loaded, you could put a music disc in, and it would play the music, and it would continue to play the game that you were playing. It was multitasking far better than Windows could ever handle.
You could multitask with terminate and stay resident applications.
That's it.
I remember those.
But do you remember the fun that we lost once we went to Windows 95? All the auto accept and config.sys and all the Atapi drivers and the AdLib drivers and the MIDI drivers and the Sound Blaster drivers and the Visa drivers and all this stuff you had to install before your system booted so that you could use it.
Big, yeah.
Yeah,
Sound Blaster drivers, right. Oh, I got a IRQ conflict. I can't run my Sound Blaster card and my modem on the same IRQ.
And it's not like you could just go into... Like in Windows 95, you would still get IRQ conflicts, but you could usually go in and change them. Back in that, before all these SATA cables and things like that, everything was assigned an actual physical hardware assignment. Yep. Whether it was master and slave on your hard drive and DVD, and not only was that confusing enough, you also not only had master and slave, you also had to have the cable the right way around, because the cable also supported master and slave. So you had master and slave on the drives, and
with little jumpers.
The cable never reached because the CD was always slave, but it was at the top of the case, but it was on the bottom of the cable. And
I remember stretching IDE cables and jamming it in there. Okay, that one's in. How the hell am I going to get another one? We'll twist it around and up underneath there. There we go.
So there's an there's an IDE hard drive. I don't know how you can see that, but you can see there's the normal 40-pin connector.
Yep.
And then you had the 4-pin normal power supply. But you can see in the middle there's 3 lots of jumpers.
Yeah.
And if you referred to the top of your drive, somewhere on there, what size is this?
From right corner.
That's the 120 gig IDE. Wow, that must have been end of the line for that.
Yeah.
But you can see down there was a chart on how to configure
master and slave only, master only.
Yep, and things like that. So this is a very late edition. 120. Wow, I can't believe that's actually such a big drive at IDE.
I had a pair of tweezers for jumpers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And a magnet.
Yeah.
And a box full of them, because you can guarantee you drop them. So yeah, so you had to set that. You had to have your cable the right way, and then whether it's video card, sound card, external, USB card or printer peripheral card or SCSI card or Trident, not Trident. They're Trident, the Weiss terminal cards. I think they're a Trident card. But yeah, all those you put in, every single one of those had to be configured. You had to then, after you got your system 3/4 assembled, you had to then go through and pull all the cards back out again so you could read what you just set them to, because you'd forgotten by the time. Oh man, it used to take so long to set up a system, didn't it?
IRQ conflict.
Or
please open it and find which one's conflicting.
Well, I can't remember what the other terminology was. There was IRQ and there was DMA. No.
That sounds familiar, TMA. Channels.
DMA? Yeah. So there was the 2 different settings you had to worry about, because when you were setting your sound card up, you had IRQ, DMA, and then you had your bit and hertz rate and all that sort of stuff. But you had to not only set the card and then set your auto accept and your config sys for the drivers, you then had to set each individual game configuration as well, because they weren't so and then Visa was a classic example. When you're installing a Visa driver, which was, I guess, you had your basic entry-level video card, so even a high-end video card would work in bog standard VGA mode with no drivers.
Yep.
And then your really high-end cards, like your 2 meg
Voodoo,
your Voodoo
3D.
Voodoo 2s. I think the biggest card I had before I went to a proper game, like went away from the PCI, actually Visa. I think PCI, the biggest card I had in PCI would have been my Trident 3D 2 meg Visa. No, PCI card. And then I went to a Voodoo 2, I think it was a 8 meg or 16 meg Visa card. And then it went to AGP, where they started getting up into 128 meg, and now they're, these cards I've got in this are cheap cards and they're 4 gig. So, so you had to install Visa drivers, which would basically turn your video card from a standard VGA 640 by 480 resolution, 256 color video card, it would work its magic on it, and it would allow that to run at resolutions, huge resolutions like 800 by 600.
You remember the Matrox? I think I remember
Matrox
having one
Millennium.
of those. Matrox Millennium, yeah.
Yep, Matrix Millennium. I had, in my AMD, I had a Matrix Millennium 32 or 64 meg card, and I had a Bigfoot hard drive.
Oh, I remember Bigfoot. I can't believe you got it.
They were basically the same hard drive as this back in the day, and I think they were running. These are about 8 or 10 or 12 platters in these things, and they're made of glass. Incidentally, if you ever take one of these apart, be really careful because inside them, the platters are made of glass and they're under a lot of tension. If you drop a screwdriver or something onto them, they will shatter and they will make they will send little tiny glass fragments everywhere. It's really cool if you do it on purpose, but be warned, don't be looking at it really closely and do it because you will wear it. But in the old days, they weren't glass. They were magnetic. I remember that. I can't remember what they were. They're tungsten coated or something.
Yeah.
But they only had 2 platters or 3 platters they could fit in this thickness. So Bigfoot, which was CK?
Quantum. I was just reading
Quantum,
it.
Of course it was, yeah. Quantum Bigfoot. Quantum got around that by just making the platters larger. So they fit into the 5.5-inch bay, the same as your CD-ROM fits into.
Yep.
Ironically, going back to the size of the old is it MFM hard drives?
Yes. That's what was my first hard drive, 128 meg MFM.
You had 128 meg MFM.
I know, right?
Wow, that must have been like $5,000.
Everyone was like, "Is this the last last MFM drive ever made that size?" Because seriously, I had to take it into the office because one of the guys I was working with was like, "There's no way you got 128 meg MFM," and I took it in there. I said, "Check this out." He's like, "Holy crap!"
That must have been because I had I think I had a 40 meg, and that was like the biggest I had ever seen.
Yeah. Couldn't believe it.
But then they went to the IDE, and then Quantum went, well, hey, there's this technology that we were using, so why don't we incorporate modern designs and make it the old case size? So they still only had the 2 platters or 4 platters or whatever it was in there, but they just made them bigger, which allowed them to not only put more data on it, but because the outside of the platters was spinning faster, they could actually had a faster read-write rate than the smaller drive. The downside, of course, is that your case hovered across the bench because of all this centrifugal force going on in there. Like, the racket, if those got slightly out of whack or the thing wasn't 100% screwed into that case, the case would actually walk.
CD-ROMs starting up when they started getting faster and faster ones, like
that was scary. Before they stabilized them and made the motors float and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it was like the 16 speeds were probably the worst. 16 and 20 speeds were probably the worst at it. Man, the vibrations of those things. I have actually seen discs explode in those just because they used to vibrate so. And that makes, if you've ever seen a CD explode inside a case, it just disintegrates the casing.
Modified frequency modulation, commonly MFM, is a run-length limited coding scheme used to encode actual data bits on most floppy disks. First introduced in disk drives with the IBM 3330 hard disk drive in 1970. Floppy disk drive hardware examples include Amiga, most CPM machines, as well as IBM compatibles. It's a modification of the original FM scheme for encoding data on a single density floppy disks and some early hard disk drives. Due to minimum spacing between flux transitions, it's property of the disk and head design, MFM, which guarantees at most 1 flux transition per data bit, can be written at higher density than FM. My VZ200 had an FM drive.
Yeah,
78K on a floppy disk.
That's what my Commodore 64 had. But that's why I'm honestly surprised it was such a big drive, because the amount of the density of the data is quite small. That's why I was so surprised you could get 128.
Yeah.
They're showing one here. They're showing a ST506 Twin, which is actually what I had. I had that controller, the Miniscope controller, and a 20 meg hard disk. So that was in my XT. Was actually the same setup as that. Actually, so it's exactly the same setup as that same hard drive as well, by the looks of it.
Oh, okay.
And if you guys have ever seen, I don't know if you've ever. I'll see if I can quickly show you this picture here. You can see that they're using standard circuitry. There's normal integrated circuits and normal. You can actually. I'll see if I can zoom in a bit more. You can actually see the normal resistors and normal capacitors on that board.
Yeah.
What? No, don't. What am I downloading? Stupid. I clicked on the picture and now it's downloading the picture. But yeah, you can actually see on there. These are normal resistors that you could go to JCar and buy, and capacitors and transistors and integrated circuits, and even these stepper motors. These stepper motors were actually out of the floppy drives.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they managed to make that work like that. And these the ISA, yeah. So these are an 8-bit ISA card, and you can see with these, they had a common data cable, which was the blue one, which you could run 1 and 2 drives both ran off that. And then you had the primary and secondary controller here, which was the thin ribbon cable, would actually give you your primary and secondary drives. And there was still the normal power connector was still on there on that slot there, and it didn't go in the back like the new drives. It actually went directly into the top.
Oh, okay.
It plugged into the top of the drive. So if you're looking at the drive, and don't forget it was twice as thick as that. They were double thickness drives and they were twice as wide. But instead of having these lined up like this, the power went in this way. So you had the 2 data cables in there and the power that way.
I was doing a search for 128 meg MFM hard drive, and one of the pages that came up with was a post by this guy called Warlock in
Seriously?
in 2012, talking about his first computers on a forum.
I was trying to find them. I couldn't find one anywhere. I was actually trying to find that. I wonder if this picture's going to work for me. This is a really good, I guess. Oh, hang on. Let me just before okay. So this one here, this is your Maxtor. By looking at it, probably a 40 meg or something like capacity. Doesn't actually. I can't. Yeah, I think it says 40 meg. And beside it would be is a modern laptop hard drive. So that gives you an idea. I mean, a laptop hard drive obviously is smaller than an IDE.
I found a page with old computers that says the Amstrad CPC 464 plus hard disk, and it could take MFM from 20 megs to 128.
Doesn't surprise me. But yeah, I mean, I had read support for it, but I had never actually seen it.
I wish I remembered what model it was.
Here's a good example. So that's your FM drive up the back, not the MFM, just the old FM drive.
Yep.
And then your MFM's the one on the left here, and then you go to your standard, I guess, the early IDE drives, and then you come down to your SATA drive.
Yep.
And then you've got your normal, what do they call them? eSATA, whatever they are, the laptop size drives. And then you've got these ones here, which are the, I can't think what they're called. They're about the same size as a compact flash card.
Yeah.
And they're designed for like mini SATA or something. They're designed for like little netbooks and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it gives you an idea of just how you can see, actually, it's a really good example. You can see these platters across the top of this drive here. Each one of these platters would have stored the data, and then the stepper drive moves the head backwards and forwards, which is why if you ever look in the BIOS, you'll see heads, sectors, etc., cylinders, etc., all in there. Yep. Back in the old days, you could actually make your hard drive any size you wanted. So the best way to protect your privacy back in the old days was actually to go into the BIOS and set your heads, cylinders, and sectors manually to something that was smaller than what your drive was, and write it down somewhere, obviously, and that made it custom, a custom drive. So say it turned a 50 meg drive into a 48 meg drive.
Oh, okay.
And it means that if anybody ever took that drive and tried to put it into their system, unless they knew sectors, cylinders, and heads, which was 4 digits, 3 digits, and 2 digits, I think, unless they knew those, they could not access the data on that drive because they'd set it to auto, but auto had the wrong settings. The other thing you could do back in the old days, which was really neat, was when you ran a good old scan on the hard drive, you had your defrags, which nobody does anymore, and you had scan disk.
Yep.
And it used to mark bad sectors. So as your drive started to fail, you could actually make it in the BIOS. Say you had, I don't know, 2 bad sectors in the middle of your hard drive. You could actually go into your BIOS and split your drive into 2 drives and just cut out that bad sector in the middle. Yeah, so you could actually tell it exactly. It's called low-level formatting, and I actually had an American Megatrends BIOS that would let me actually low-level format my drive.
That's nice. Do you remember how awesome Partition Magic was when it came out?
Partition Magic was.
Could resize partitions now. It was like, oh, this is not Partition Magic. This is black magic voodoo stuff.
Partition
you can't
Magic.
do that. It's not possible. Anyone try and resize a partition, the whole drive would implode.
Especially without losing your data. That was the secret to it. As long as you didn't try to make it smaller than the amount of data that was on that drive.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really critical when Windows 95 came in and you had that hard limit of, was it 2 gig hard limit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had a bigger drive, which at that point was starting to become like 4 gig drives and 8 gig drives were starting to become a thing. So if you had Windows 95 before 95B came out and Plus came out and patched that, you actually had to use something like Partition Magic to split your drive. So if you had a 6 gig drive, you had to split it into 3 2 gig partitions.
Yeah.
Now there was another one called Boot Magic or
I remember
something.
the name Boot Magic. Yeah.
And it would put a software bootloader onto your drive. So it made like this 1 meg boot drive, and then it loaded, same as Lilo does in Linux and things like that. And it would emulate the BIOS. So it was actually, it was slow. It was dog slow. But it would allow you to use this 6 or 10 gig drive, even on Windows 3.1 if you wanted to. And that's how we used to run our servers, because your servers don't boot very often. Once they're up, they stay up for a long period of time. So it doesn't matter if they're slow to boot. It was a really good way of running, 8 gig. I think we had a massive case. We had a 12 bay server case. The thing was, 4 foot high.
Yep.
And it was full of 12 8 gig SCSI daisy chained drives. And we were running this software bootloader to trick, because we were running it on NT 3.5 at the time, and we had to trick it into accepting this bigger drive. So yeah, we used this SCSI tower that that had a similar drone to a jet plane. You can imagine 12 unbalanced 8 gig drives all going nuts in this one case.
Yeah.
And when you access, because they were all RAID 5, it's RAID 5 where they share the data. They, not mirrored, they actually split the drives for speed.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's RAID 5. But yeah, when they're all doing that, so if you're doing, say, a graphics design at the time, was actually what we were using it for, and you're accessing a big file, like 10 meg file, and it hit 4 or 5 of those drives at the same time to pull the data.
Yeah.
It sounded like somebody took the case with a sledgehammer. Like, it was absolutely insane. But I couldn't imagine running servers and file servers and data storage off these old MFM stuff. I mean, they did it.
Yep.
I know there was banks of people, with Commodore 64s and even earlier than that doing this thing. But man, imagine the heat, but imagine the noise on a personal computer. I'm not talking like the big servers, which you expect to be big and noisy.
Yep.
But no, it was fun. I think I still have my Quantum 50 meg, my first IDE drive I bought.
Oh, okay.
In my 386.
Yep.
It ended up being my drive I used in my compact mail server. But I've still got it. And last time I was at Dad's place, it actually still booted.
Ah,
the compact,
nice.
The old 386 compact powered straight up. Didn't even give me a flat battery BIOS warning or anything. And that thing hasn't been powered on for, 15 years at least.
Yeah. All my old stuff got passed on to somebody else. First it was my uncle, and then like cousins, my ex-wife, and family and friends. Dad's got a couple of my really old computers that I've upgraded since. He's got so much storage capacity that he doesn't know what to put on them. Because they're like, oh, okay, here, Dad, here's a 100 gig drive. I don't use it anymore because all of mine are terabytes now that I buy. What am I going to put on this? All he's got is Windows and a bunch of Mum's poems and short stories. There's like so much space on it. I'm like, okay, well, there's like 3 drives in there. You only use one and you don't even use like a tenth of that. So we use the others for backups of the original ones. So.
I don't know if you can see, that's my GoPro, right? Which in itself is amazing technology. That is a 64 gig SD card.
Yep.
Which, I mean, these go up to...
Huge in capacity, but not in size.
These go up to 256 gig quite readily now. But 64 gig, 120 gig.
No wonder it's so big. It's got nearly twice as much in it.
I know. And as I was saying before, those MFM drives that were commonly 5 and 10 meg was their most common sizes. And they were, 6 times the size of that.
Yeah.
So it's, and what was it? What for the first hard drive was 5 meg? Was it the one that they used the forklift?
Yeah, the IBM one.
Yeah, the IBM one that they used the forklift to get on and off the plane.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous, to be honest.
Crazy stuff.
So,
shall we do some history?
Have we got time?
I think we're going to have to pick through some of them now because we've done half the show already.
Oh dear.
Memories. Do you want to start off? I got a really early one there for you, talking about old fart geek stuff. Old.
Yeah, this
really,
is
really
like
old.
probably before.
Even before
Geeks
you were
was
born.
This was before Geeks was even a word, I would say.
Maybe Greeks.
Yeah, Greeks. 240 BC, which is before cheese or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chinese astronomers observed a broom-shaped star in the sky. It was the first confirmed sighting of Halley's Comet, which I'm yet to see because every time it comes around it gets cloudy.
See, we just had the blood moon and everybody back in my hometown is like, it was rainy and cloudy, and I was out here going, geez, that's a lovely blood moon. I can watch the shadow go creep across there. Hey, we got full lunar eclipse now. That's awesome.
Shut up.
Talking Dad on the phone, and he's like, can't see Jack.
I couldn't see a damn thing. It was actually raining really heavily.
Oh, no.
So it wasn't only that it was cloudy, it was actually pissing.
If it was possible to take a photo of it with any sort of digital phone camera, I would have, but I don't have anything with optical zoom, and I just get a whole lot of black and white static.
Actually, it's funny you should mention that. That's actually why I bought a proper camcorder.
Take a photo
and
of
the actual image quality on this isn't any better than my Note.
Yep.
But this has got a 72 by optical zoom. And that, this does, with the press of a button, does still pictures as well as video. So just the fact that it's got a 72 by optical zoom and it's quite small and compact, I mean, we've got the digital SLR, the Canon EOS that we use for our good photos, but that's the only reason I bought an actual camcorder was for the zooming. Because when you've got as you know, when you've got either a fixed focus like one of these cheap sports cameras, which is a GoPro ripoff, whether you've got a GoPro, whether you've got a phone, they're all fine and dandy. The picture quality is great, but you can't zoom in on anything.
As long as somebody's right there.
Yeah, exactly. So.
That's why a lot of them do post-zooming and stuff now.
And just a little tip too, if you are a YouTuber or you want to be a podcaster or you want to do vlogs or anything like that, these Panasonic, HC V110, you can get them on eBay now. I've seen them for $80 or $90.
Yep.
They do full 1080p. They have really good zoom. They got really good audio quality. You can buy an extended battery that battery lasts 6 hours.
Yep. They store an SD.
The normal battery it comes with lasts like 45 minutes. It's a standard SD storage, which I've actually got a micro SD in an adapter, but it's standard SD.
Yep.
And it's obviously got a screen. It can be charged with USB or direct connect to the computer. Nice. And it has HDMI output, so you can do either live or whatever.
Nice.
So just a side note, but yeah, if you're interested in doing that sort of thing, that's really my recommendation, especially for the price. It's very hard to go past that.
No, that's not a side note. Your phone is.
No, that'd be the Edge, wouldn't it? The only thing I would say about it is it records audio at 44.1. So if you're using something like Camtasia, it will distort the crap out of the audio because Camtasia can only handle 44 kilobits. So things like Movie Maker work fine, but because it uses a slightly different proprietary, it uses AVCD HD, which is common among camcorders, but it's sort of proprietary. It's not completely Windows friendly.
Yep.
So things like Movie Maker will work, but it's very, very slow to do its processing.
Okay.
So
leave it going overnight.
Well, it's not the actual encoding, it's the processing. When you first drag the files into it and then actually want to cut the files up, that's what takes a long time. Yeah.
So he did one history story, so that was a great show. Even just that one story put us off on a tangent for 5 minutes there, as usual.
Dear. There are a few in here that are quite interesting.
In 105, Ts'ai Lun demonstrated his process for making paper to the Han Emperor in China. He probably didn't invent it, but he certainly turned it into an industry for the first time, and the industry still survives 20 centuries later, even in the face of computers that plot its doom, such as our paperless office, right?
Yeah.
All offices are paperless. I remember that from like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
All the paper will be gone from office and computer have taken over now. We print out so many more tons of paper. Check out my new Optus bills, will you, that I got for signing up this.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? The amount of paper that we print at work is ridiculous, given that the boss has his thing. We get updated price lists every week. So every week he prints off the price list and puts it in the folder. That's like a 50-page price list. And every week I just look at the Excel document. Like, I just go to Excel, type in the part number, and it's there. I don't have to rummage. He insists on printing off his part. And it's like,
these old folks still don't get it, son.
Oh, no, right. So, yeah, in 1970, speaking of batteries that we were earlier, John Frederic Daniell was born. He would grow up to invent the... Hey?
You said 1970.
Or 1790, I mean, numbers. He would grow up to invent the Daniell cell, which is a battery that supplied an even current during continuous operation, thus making battery power practical. So, it was basically a normal like alkaline style battery, like a AA cell sort of thing.
Is that before Duracell or Everready?
It was Daniell cell, so
Daniell cell.
DA becomes before DU, so yeah, it's before Duracell.
1802, Richard Trevithick and Andrew Vivian of Combourne Parish in the county of Cornwall enrolled a patent for a steam engine that could power a full-size road locomotive. he had previously demonstrated by driving up a hill in a car he called the Puffing Devil.
Wasn't that a dragon who lived by the sea in
an
underwater
octopus's
garden?
in the
Hang on a minute.
So, those drugs you're on pretty good, huh?
About that Puff the Magic Dragon.
That was a song about drugs.
An octopus's garden wasn't?
No, neither was a yellow submarine for that matter.
Or was he in the sky with diamonds?
No, he was saying that his daughter drew a picture of this girl in the sky and there was diamonds in the sky, and so that's the real story, right? We all believe that.
I'd buy that.
Yeah, for $1.
In 1905, Cornelius
You picked it. Look, I just
I didn't
paste
pick it
these
for the
in.
name. I just picked it because of the story. Of Rosemount, Pennsylvania. Why can I say Pennsylvania, but I can't say Arrête? Received a patent for the art of transmitting intelligence. Nothing to do with politics. It was the forerunner of the modern fax machine, which, ironically enough, my boss also insists on still using.
You know what you do? You print out one completely black page, tape it together, and fax it to someone.
Yep. You get a page like that, and you put it in the fax machine. And as it starts to come through, you quickly tape it up, and you just it just sits there and continually rolls through.
And some of them start smoking.
Yeah, the old the heat ones that are called the paper.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one we've got. We don't even have a flat
you
paper.
got the
it's
wax,
the curly paper one.
Wax paper.
The thermal one.
I had a
like,
thermal
seriously?
printer. It was the crappiest thing. I had a chance when I had the VZ200, I had two chance to buy a printer. I was going to buy a dot matrix, and then this guy had a thermal one for sale. I was like, quick, I'll go get that one because I was impatient. And whenever I make a decision, it's like, okay, I'm going to go do that now and go do it. I don't want to sit on eBay or something. I want to go buy it at a shop now and have it in my house this afternoon, not buy it and then wait 4 days for it to get delivered. So I was like, okay, I want this printer instead. So I rang up the other guy. I said, don't want your one anymore because you're taking too long. I'm going to go buy this thermal one. And geez, it was terrible.
I had a 286 monochrome laptop, and it had, obviously it was a normal laptop, and on top of the keyboard, sort of just before where the monitor would fold, it had a thermal ribbon printer built in.
Oh, okay.
So you'd put your piece of paper in behind the monitor, type up your document or whatever you're typing up, press print, and it would feed it through the thermal tape.
Portable
and up
on the road
front of
printing.
keyboard.
OMG.
Hey?
Nice.
Yeah, it was actually
great for business.
For what it was a fantastic idea. As you said, it was thermal, so it was crap. But I mean, if you wanted to print up a receipt or an invoice or whatever, it was great. And the closest you can get to these days, you can buy thermal printers. But
I mean, all the shops use them, so you can't claim anything back on the receipt that they print out if it breaks.
That's why I take a photo of it.
Exactly. I put it in. I put mine in Evernote or email it to myself.
I've actually got an app on my phone that'll take a photo of it and actually OCRs it.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've got one for my cards as well. With you get like
business
store cards that have got barcodes and stuff. Rub off. Yeah, same deal. It takes a photo of the barcode on the back, and takes a photo of the picture on the front, and OCRs it all. And then when you actually scroll through it, find the card you want, press a button, and show the screen to the cashier, and they can just scan the screen.
Nice.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Do the cashiers understand that technology?
Some of them do. Yeah, the younger ones get it. The older ones sort of go.
I don't want your phone. I want your bloody card. What the hell are you doing? You took a photo of your card. Very good, sir. Now show me the damn card.
That's it.
1932, the Sydney Harbour Bridge was opened. It is the world's largest, but
coat
not
hanger.
the longest steel arch bridge, with the top of the bridge standing 134 metres above the harbour.
So there you go. The largest coat hanger was born, and that's where oh man, what's his name? Crocodile Dundee.
Paul Hogan used to paint it.
Yeah, that's what he did before he was discovered.
Yeah. Paint the Harbour Bridge for a job. How would you like that?
Yeah, I know, right?
We've got space grey, military grey, or ocean grey. The idiot is painting taking it from the ocean grey back to military grey. I mean, what is it with this guy?
Harbour and IBM in 1939 signed an agreement to build the Mark I. That was an Escort, I think.
Yeah.
Also known as the IBM Automatic Sequence Controlled Calculator, or ASC. It weighed 5 tons, and it was really useful because it could read data from paper.
Or punch cards.
But yeah, it was 5 tons of card reading power.
And to be nice to you, I know you'd like to do it, the one from 1948, a couple down.
Oh, you mean William Gibson?
Yeah, you like
who,
him,
if you've ever watched Hackers, is referenced several times. Was born in Conway, South Carolina. His stories are credited with launching cyberpunk literature, named after the phrase he used in the story of burning chrome.
Haven't read any of his stuff, I don't think.
I've read. There's a what do they call it when they get half a dozen different works and sort of
like mini story collection or something.
Yeah, they're bridged versions, but they're tied together.
Yep.
I've sort of read something like that. I think it was an Audible actually. But yeah, if you know about William Gibson, obviously he's credited for a lot of things. But if you watch Hackers, they hack the Gibson.
Yeah, that's funny.
Kind of a reference.
We're not talking about a guitar.
No, that's right. But just to go to show you, he grew up in Virginia. He dropped out of high school, as is the case with so many of these entrepreneurs.
Yep.
They did not complete their studies. He travelled to Canada, things like that. Necromancer was one of his novels, which I actually have. Necromancer, that's the one I have read. But yeah, they won 3 major science fiction awards: the Nebula, the Hugo, and the Nebula and the Hugo sound cool. I'd like to win those. The third one he won was the Philip K. Dick.
The what? He won a dick, did he?
I'm not sure if I'd be quite as content.
Do you want to see my dick? I got it right over here in the display case. Even
up to Idaho in 96, All Tomorrow's Parties 99, Pattern Recognition 203, Spook County in 2000, Spook Country in 2007, Zero History in 2010, and the Peripheral in 2014. So, yeah, that's it. 2012, he published a collection called Distrust That Particular Flavor. That's the other one I've read.
And we'll have to say good night to Milo, because I read on Facebook that he listens to us as he tries to drift off to sleep, because who's more boring than us, right? Have a good sleep there, Milo.
Count those Minecraft sheep.
One sheep. In 1951, Dean Kamen was born in Rockville Center, New York. He grew up to found Deka Research in 1982, which developed a portable dialysis machine, a vascular stent, the iBot, a motorized wheelchair that climbs stairs, and the Segway, which completely changed all cities and the way people live and how they get around and the transport and all that stuff, right?
Well,
I get up every morning and I hop on my Segway and go down to the train station.
I think he was 10 years too early with it.
Yep.
There are a lot of Segway tours. You can rent Segways, and there's off-road Segways now.
And we saw that guy, the mall cop, he rides one.
Yeah. There's Uni Segway.
Yep.
It's like a unicycle. So yeah, they've done a few cool things with it. I think he was a little bit early with it, but once I think battery technology moves on a little bit, then there might be something to look out for. Because I could imagine going to somewhere like Myer Centre in Brisbane, or Crown Casino, for example, in Melbourne, or something like that, where it's just huge footprint.
Yep.
And honestly, the worst part about it is walking. Like if you've ever been to Crown Casino in Melbourne,
yes,
and you come in at the food court,
yes,
and then you want to go to, and then you want to go to a movie. Well, there's half an hour's walk, and then from the movie you want to go to the nightclub. Well, there's 2 floors and another half an hour, and then from there you want to go down to the arcade. So you go down 4 floors and another 5 minutes walking. So it literally, for something like that, I can actually see where it would be handy. 1953, It's a good year. That somebody I know was born then. I don't know when it was. Anyway, I know when it was. I don't know who it was. Australian researcher David Warren came up with the idea for a device to record aircraft crashes.
Yep.
Okay, it wasn't actually designed for that. It was designed to record
YouTube,
cockpit
right?
noise and instrument flights during flight. It just it was originally called the ARL Flight Memory Unit, and we know it as the black box.
Yep.
And it hasn't really changed.
I would like to have a seat on the plane that's in the black box.
We know that song. Joke.
Why don't they make the whole plane out of the same material? Come on.
What's interesting
because it wouldn't get off the damn ground. That's why.
Yeah, well, it's that. What's interesting about the black box is really the technology hasn't changed. It's literally, as far as I'm aware, I'm just double checking myself quickly through Wikipedia, but as far as I can tell, it's basically a steel or a wire tape. Like back in the day, you used to hear people saying, I'm going to record that to wire, which was pre-magnetic tape. It was literally a wire strip around and they could record to it. But as far as I can tell, the actual black box itself is just that. It's an old wired recording. It only records like 7 minutes or something at a time, and then it re-records it. Because it is so simple, it's basically indestructible. These things survive plane crashes, they survive explosions, they survive impacts into rock and concrete, and they just work. So.
And they're also responsible for a song in 1990 called Right on Time, Right on Time. That was by Black Box. Let me tell you what you do to me.
Just because
I can't change my heart. You just walk right.
Just because
walk right.
A band is known, has a similar name, doesn't mean it should ever be repeated.
Especially on a podcast. If that didn't send him off to sleep, nothing will.
That's like saying, Polyester Girl was Black Bug. It's like it's... you just you shouldn't know
girl,
these things. Why do I know these things? Make it stop. No, that's Barbie.
Barbie was in a polyester. No, that was Madonna.
That was
when she's living in a polyester world and she's a polyester girl. Polyester is a type of material, right?
Yeah. It's
so
the thing that they make things out of.
True, right. 1954, Daniell Kotke was born in Bronxville, New York. He would go on to befriend Steve Jobs and Reed College, assemble the first Apple computers with Steve Wozniak, and work on the original Macintosh team. What fun that would have been. Awesome.
I'm going to kind of combine about 5 stories here because
go do it.
Apparently it was a good week for space. In 1965, the Voskhod 2 launched into the second orbit of cosmonaut Alex Leonov. He left the capsule for 12 minutes, becoming the first... I love the way this is worded. He left the capsule on purpose for 12 minutes, becoming the first person to walk in space, just in case there was an accident.
Oops, I accidentally went for a walk. I didn't mean to.
So a year later, in 1966... 1965, in the same week, Hughes aircraft Early Bird launched into orbit. It was the first comm satellite to be placed in synchronous orbit. A year later, in 1966, Luna 10 became the first spacecraft to enter lunar orbit. It completed its first orbit in 2 hours and 58 minutes. In 1973, NASA launched the Pioneer 11 spacecraft, which was the second mission to investigate Jupiter and the outer solar system. Also in 1973, Martin Cooper, general manager of Motorola's Communications, who made the first phone, made the first handheld phone call from New York City Street. And we actually talked about this previously, about how that all came about. So go back and listen to, I think it was the second or third podcast where we talked about all that. And the final space one is in 1974. NASA's Mariner 10 became the first space probe to cross the orbit of Mercury, about 700 k's from the surface.
Nice.
Surface, as opposed to
Microsoft Surface? Because in 1975, Bill Gates and Paul Allen formed a partnership in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The venture was later named Micro-Soft.
I was going to say, did you notice a dash in that?
Micro-Soft. They're like, we got to get rid of the dash. because it's too annoying to keep telling people there's a hyphen in there. You wrote it wrong. All right, we'll just call it Microsoft.
We'll just change our name.
Same as Google was originally Googol, and somebody wrote them a check for Google, and they're like, hey, that's an even better one. Let's rename the whole company that. So they did.
I was actually just looking at some of the old Microsoft logos. I forgot how ordinary it used to be. It has changed a little bit over the years.
It has, yeah. It was kind of white with some stripy bits. And the F and T joined together.
That was, I think, Windows 95 era?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's changed a lot over the years. Now it's just like Play School Windows or something.
Yeah. Just all white, square.
I missed it. I knew there was another space one there. 79, fully functional space shuttle orbiter, Columbia, John F. Kennedy Space Center, first launch. You get the idea. The one that I found interesting was in 1981, which was a great year for technology and for leaps and bounds in future podcasters. RCA's first Selectavision video disc went on sale. It was the SFT-100W, in case anyone's interested. The machine used a capacitance electronic discs to fit a couple of hours of programming onto a 12-inch vinyl disc that sold for about $15.
Nice.
They were the precursor to the, I guess, Pioneer, and everybody else ended up doing a video disc. But these were the video discs themselves, the later ones, the Pioneer ones, the who else do I have? I can't think. It was Pioneer and Kenwood, I know, did it. They were actually quite high quality. They were used in the early jukeboxes. They were used in the early what's that thing where you sing and don't make any
karaoke?
No, that's the one. They were used in the early ones of that. These early ones, I actually looked it up because I hadn't actually specifically heard of the Selectavision one. These were actually a lower quality version. Because they were actually on a vinyl disc, which in itself is quite odd.
Yep.
They were what they called a capacitance electronic disc. So I guess it's an analog system playing a digital media.
Yeah.
It was literally played using basically a record player. It was what it was used was actually a needle. It was, it literally used a needle in the groove. So it was, it's really hard to explain actually. It was read later on the video disc went on to be read optically like a CD or anything like that. But yeah, these earlier ones were actually read. Seeing if I can find I don't know if you've ever seen the old CDs where they actually had
do you know how to get better quality sound from a CD? You get one of those green marker pens and you draw around the outside of it.
Yeah.
You didn't hear that story years ago? People used to do that. They go out and get green markers because somebody put on the internet that if you draw around the edge of a audio CD with a green marker, then the quality of the audio would go amazing.
So as you can see here, they were actually in a, much like the old or the newer, I guess at that point they hadn't been invented, the CD-ROMs that had the cartridge loads.
Yep.
So they were the same sort of deal. You can actually see there that they were in a cartridge, so that they were protected. But there's a photo here. If I just go, it should work. There we go. If we go there, you can actually see. It kind of looks like a CD in some respects.
Yep.
It's very hard to make out, but you can actually see these faint grooves that actually
groovy, baby, yeah.
Actually were literally where the needle sat on those grooves. So it was a really amazing architecture that you could get sound and video quite literally from a needle in a record player. I mean, obviously it was low. It was lower quality, like compared to, as I said, the later video discs and stuff. I'm actually trying to find quickly. It's quite hard to read much further ahead than what you're talking, but as a quick example, it was basically 30 centimeters in diameter. To avoid metric, they called them 12-inch discs, even though they're actually 11.8. The groove itself is 657 nanometers, which, if you wrote to the whole disc, would be 12 miles or 19 kilometers of grooves on one side of the disc. It rotated at a constant speed at 450 RPM for NTSC or 500 RPM for PAL because we had a higher frame rate. So it obviously needed to spin faster to keep up with the frame rate. Each rotation contained several full frames. So full 4 frames for NTSC or 3 for PAL. Yep. That meant that a freeze frame was impossible on players without very expensive electronic buffers. Yeah. Because the frame, basically the disc was basically cut into 4. Each one of those 4 segments was a frame. So it was pretty much impossible to pause it because of that reason. It was a keel-shaped needle running titanium electrodes. It ran in the tracking with extremely light tracking, like 65 milligrams, as opposed to the old records that when they'd skip, you'd get a 1 cent piece and stick it on the head.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really do that like this.
1 cent piece? What's that?
Actually, I found one the other day while we were cleaning up. It might have been here. No. I actually found a 1 cent piece. I forgot how small they were. They were tiny. So, yeah, it was using capacitive style pickup. It doesn't, I can't see anywhere what the resolution was. It was 20 kilohertz, was on the audio only, but when you think about it, you had to combine video with that. So you're trying to fit video and audio onto something that was only capable of doing 20 kilohertz of audio.
Yep.
So yeah, it really the video quality was 3 megahertz. There you go. And to give you an idea, VHS or Betamax was 5 megahertz. So it was lower than a VHS. And later laser discs were also around 5, so about the same as a VHS. Or Beta, which ironically looked better, even though it was the same data set.
Yeah.
So about 120 minutes you could fit on a disc.
Nice.
So there's a bit of tech that nobody's probably ever seen, but they were really awesome.
I certainly hadn't. 1985, Symbolics, a Massachusetts computer company, registered the internet's first domain name, symbolics.com. The domain is now owned by an investment company who uses it as a marketing device. Of course they do. The remains of the original Symbolics company survived in an altered form at symbolics-dks.com.
Yes, it does. Well, I did. Let's see. Does it still? No, there we go. Super high quality webpage. That's it.
Is it?
That's all you get.
Compatible with Netscape or Internet Explorer 3?
Probably doesn't work on Internet Explorer.
No, nothing does. But wait till Spartan comes out. That browser's going to be awesome.
That'll fix it. 1989, Tim Berners-Lee. You should have heard that name. If you haven't,
why not?
Cryptonomicron is a good place to find out about Tim Berners-Lee. Wrote a paper proposing an information management system. Basically became the foundation of what we now know as the World Wide Web. He called it the mesh, and now ironically the mesh is an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
So.
And he came up with hypertext links and stuff like that.
HTTP. Which he always said that if he had have known the internet was going to be used for what it was used for, he would never have incorporated any of that.
HTTP or www.
And it's only still people say that.
Yep.
You can look us up on http://www. What? Sorry, what were you saying? I've lost interest.
I still have customers ring up and you're like, what's your domain name? www. Or can you tell me your domain name? Oh, you mean my email address? Yes, just give me the email address. I'll take the domain part out of that myself because I know what that means.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Fred at mybusiness.com.
Oh, okay, so your domain is mybusiness.com, isn't it, Fred?
Yeah, I know.
1992, Microsoft released Windows 3.1. It sold for $149 and added support for sound cards, MIDI and CD audio, Super VGA monitors, and support for 9600 BPS modems.
Now, I don't know if that's technically correct. It didn't actually support... Well, I guess it supported that insofar as that worked. But it didn't support that because without the drivers in... like your auto accept and your config system loading the drivers.
And your WinAny.
Yeah.
Don't forget WinAny. That was very important. Was WinAny.
It was. That never really would have actually done any. Like, it didn't work without any of that. So Windows 3.1 itself. Yeah, 3.1 itself wasn't much more than a Minesweeper game.
Yeah.
Really, that's pretty much.
That's why you needed your trumpet windsock, right?
Wow, what are they running this on? Windows 3.1. Somehow running at 1024 by 768. I don't know.
Or greater recommended. Best viewed in Firefox 3. That's a
IE8 apparently.
It's a Java version of Windows 3.1, I'd say, or
and they've
JavaScript.
got 314% system resources free.
More than 3 times more than the actual resources that exist.
So yeah,
well, I wonder how much was used then. 500% used and 300% free. Nice.
So $150. I'll tell you what, it was a bit rich, but it was, as we said.
And the next one, Windows 10 free. Oh yeah,
free if you own a legit version of Windows 8.
Free Windows 10. Lots of singing in this show.
1993. Richard Depew. Is he like related to PewDiePie?
Yeah.
Well, it could be. Accidentally posted 200 identical messages to a news admin policy while testing some auto moderation software. It became the first Usenet postings to be referred to as spam.
Spam.
Which I have an issue with the way that term's used very, very badly these days.
Mm-hmm.
Spam is... I got a Gumtree ad taken down because I spammed the locations of the areas around me. Like, no, that wasn't
you need
spam.
coverage for.
That was where I cover these areas.
Yeah.
Oh, it came up in our spam filter, so we deleted your post.
Thanks.
You
suck.
Go back and look at the definition of spam, and you will find that is not what spam is. Like, these people are just so dense, they're just so used to deleting everything without looking at it.
Yep.
That I argued with their supposed head moderator for a week that he was wrong. And all he did was link me to a page that said no spam. And I'm like, this isn't spam. You don't get it. Are you actually deliberately trying to piss me off, or are you just naturally this stupid?
Stupid.
You know.
Stupid.
And they just couldn't understand that that's not spam.
It's all gone downhill since eBay took over, right?
Oh, hadn't it what? It's horrid. There's got to be something else come along that hopefully
Jason's
soon.
List.
That'll work.
Will's List.
I dare you.
Will List.
I double dare you.
1994, Mark Andreessen and Jim Clark founded Mosaic Communications Corp., which they later renamed Netscape Communications Corp. Andreessen developed Mosaic Browser while at National Center for Supercomputing Applications, NCSA, at the University of Illinois.
And of course, nobody's ever heard of Mosaic.
No. Everything had to be Mosaic compatible. Actually, lots of stuff ran on the Mosaic engine, didn't it?
Yeah. Nobody, I mean, they wouldn't know they were using it, but it was run on that engine.
Yeah.
Like Netscape and
Gecko.
all those. Yeah, Gecko. They're all run on the Mosaic engine, but I don't think anybody ever actually used the Mosaic browser per se.
No.
1994, Linus Torvalds posted to comp.os.linux.announce, which for those who don't know is a Usenet board.
Yep. They're still around.
Use group. I guess it's
Great
the modern
for downloading
equivalent
your
of
movies when your ISP blocks your torrents, folks.
I guess
Heard a sick beard?
Usenet news groups are the new equivalent of what used to be called billboards or BBSs, more or less.
Sickbeard and Couch Potato and NAZB use news groups for getting all your latest movies and stuff.
Actually, a lot of things do now. It's quite surprising. I noticed a lot of things are starting to use it now.
So I hear.
Apparently, but yeah. So in 1994, he posted that the Linux kernel release 1 had arrived, which wasn't really much more user friendly. It wasn't really much more user friendly than Unix at that point.
Yeah. It's basically a memory manager, and then they tacked on a whole heap of stuff.
Yeah, and it's going great guns.
Took over the internet.
Wow.
1998, long before texting or cell phones were considered a danger in the car, a driver in Marseille, France, was distracted by her Tamagotchi virtual pet. She ran into a group of cyclists, killing one and injuring one other. I just like to end the show on a high note like that.
You know what's funny is I had a Tamagotchi for a long time.
And how many people did you kill?
Well,
I had a Tamagotchi. I thought it was awesome. Me and my girlfriend used to have fun with them.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
I got an app on my Pebble Watch. It's a mini Tamagotchi type character.
Not the same though.
It's called Hachi.
Yeah, I think I've actually got one on my phone. I had one on my phone. So it's not the same, but there's just something about carrying the Tamagotchi around. I had a later one. Yeah, that one there actually. That's the one I've got.
Can we see that very well? Not very well.
Yep. Yeah, you can see
little fella's there. You can feed him and stuff.
I had a basic one like the one on the blue one here on the left. That was just a cheap version of the Tamagotchi.
Oh, yeah. I think ours were like $20 cheapo ones.
Yeah, but some of my friends had, man, they were intense. Like some of these ones here had the infrared on the top where you could like share stuff and beam things, and you could do. Some of them had like pedometers and stuff built into them where.
Yes, I had a pedometer one. That's right. I remember now.
They're actually pretty neat for what they were. They was surprisingly cool. The biggest problem with the cheap one that I had was the battery would go flat and you'd have to start again.
Yep.
It wasn't smart enough.
Oh,
I didn't realise they actually released that.
According to Bandai, the name is a portmanteau combining the Japanese word tamago, which means egg, and the English word watch. Consequently, the name is sometimes romanized as Tamagotchi without the I in Japan. Most Tamagotchi characters' names end in chi in Japanese with a few exceptions.
So it'd be one of those then?
Yeah.
An actual watch?
Yeah. Interesting.
Which one? Whoa.
Egg watch. That's a giant one.
That's a big Tamagotchi.
That's a Tamamaxi.
Tamagotchi friends. They were huge, yeah. Man, even I went to an all boys school, and even there, I can guarantee you, a lot of people had them. Yep. Even though you would never be seen with one, it'd never be whipped out in public. But I can guarantee you, just about all of them would have had one.
Using infrared communication, 2 players can link their toys, and the pets form friendships, play games, exchange gifts, and even marry. Infrared connection was introduced to the Plus connection, but the Japanese Chao Jinso and Joy Tamagotchi was the first model to interact with a computer.
So, Bandai... whoa. What's that?
The Metsuchi and Usutsu Tamagotchis were the first to introduce marriages and offspring, and the feature returned in the Plus connection and subsequent models. 2 players with a male and female pet may link their toys, allow the pets to develop friendship and fall in love. Once the pets have raised their relationship meter sufficiently, the pets then marry. The player can choose to have their pet marry a random pet brought in by the matchmaker. Once married, the female would eventually produce 2 eggs, keeping one and leaving one with the male. Since the parent would automatically guide the baby's life, the only care it needs from the player is medicine in the case of sickness. After a few days, the parent will leave and the player is left to care for the new generation.
That's much more complicated than I remember.
Mine was like, feed it, clean up the poop, wash it, and let it play a game or something.
So, yes. So the good old
you've got Nintendogs. Slightly higher quality.
Yeah. Was that?
And you can pat him, you rub your stylus over his head, and he ruff.
There was the one on the PC too. I can see if I can.
Remember Nico Cat? He used to run around the screen and chase your mouse cursor, and you stop, and then he'd go lick himself and go to sleep. He was a lot of fun.
I had dogs, which was I'm just loading it up here. I actually had. No, it was just called Dogs. It was that one there. There was Dogs and Pets, and you'd actually, it was the same sort of deal. It was a dog that lived on your screen, and while you're doing stuff,
he could chase flying toasters.
Yeah, could do all sorts of stuff with it. I was just trying to see if anyone's got screen caps of it, but I can't find any.
Dang.
But yeah, it was really cool. You'd install it, then you choose your dog, and you can make a designer dog if you wanted to. Yep.
Give it 6 legs and 4 eyes.
Something like that. But then you would say, okay, I want you to be my guard dog or something. So if your screensaver came on, for example, and then somebody moved the mouse, it'd come up and start barking and stuff.
Do you remember the Bill Gates Windows screensaver, and he'd come on and he'd have a squeegee and he'd clean your screen?
Oh, yeah.
And Johnny Castaway, that was one of my favourites. I sat there for hours watching Johnny Castaway on his desert island, see all the different things he'd do, and certain days of the year he'd do other things, and sit there fishing, and then he'd go to the coconut tree and get a coconut and eat that for breakfast, and that was fun, those things.
Yeah, he was really cool. I actually completely forgot that was even a thing. But
there he is.
Yeah, the Sierra, of course.
Yeah.
The sounds were so basic. Of course, they were just little tiny WAV files. Yeah, it was great. And
Mermaid.
One thing you could do on Windows 3.1 that you couldn't do later on was you could make your PC speaker actually emulated as a sound card.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have a proper sound card in there, you could just use software emulation on your PC speaker. Driver, so stuff like this had sound.
Yeah. I got a boot. Dang it.
Yeah, you could sit there and watch that. Man, I used to sit there and watch it all the time.
You got a letter in a bottle. What is it? Oh, don't stop it now. Come on. I want to see what's in the letter. Toilet paper. Where do you get the pen from?
His pocket. What's he want?
SOS.
SOS.
He doesn't say where to find him though.
Huh.
SOS. Save us, but where? What?
Probably doesn't know.
Hang on. Oh, some old lady gets the little bottle.
She looks like she's from Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, I know, right? Funny that.
Oh, dear.
Geez, they must have had some fun making these.
Oh, yeah. There was some great screensavers.
Great big island with a volcano. Some handsome guy. Yeah, not. Good luck with that one.
So, yeah, the story takes place over a time span of 11 days. The story scenes are rarely and randomly shown on the screensaver, which makes it nearly impossible to know how the full story exactly goes. Until now, they've actually that one I showed you is actually in order, but yeah, there was I'm actually just YouTubed old screensavers. Of course, this one had everybody amazed when it first came out.
Oh yeah, it used the left-hand maze rule.
Yeah. Yep, always turn left.
I taught my daughter that one even before that. I knew about that one before it came out because one of my friends went to a hedge maze.
Yeah.
Like, if you use the left-hand maze rule. Remember the
left
pipes?
or right.
It draws the pipes around the screen, 3D pipes.
Yeah, well, that's still on. That's still current. That's still on Windows.
I just did what you did and did a search for Windows screensavers.
Yeah. There's so much.
10 screensavers of your. What do they got there?
But what else we got? Yeah, The the Misty screensaver, of course.
Oh yeah. Starry Night, Mystify
These were
Your
in the
Mind.
plus pack, I think.
Oh, Mystify Your Mind with the lines that go bit like quicks.
Now this is called Mystify now.
Yeah. Flying Windows, Starfield Simulation.
Starfield
3D text
That's-
Easter eggs in certain versions of Windows. The 3D text screensaver had some interesting Easter eggs that were apparent if you type in special phrases into the text box.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that. I actually still run pipes on my current computer, actually.
Okay.
They're on there.
Yep.
Which actually looks really good on multiple monitors because it goes across all the different monitors really well.
Right.
It's one of the better ones for multiple screens.
Yep.
The Matrix screensaver. It wasn't a standard window
that was
one.
popular.
Yeah, it wasn't standard window, but this looks really good on multi-monitor as well.
We had one that had an aquarium. Used to sit there for hours just watching the fish swimming around. They had HP did one so that the more that you printed out and used up your ink cartridge, the more fish and stuff would arrive in there. You could buy new fish.
Oh, really?
You remember the Ooga Chaka baby? Ooga
Yes.
Chaka, Ooga Ooga.
Dancing
Ooga
baby.
Chaka, Ooga Chaka. Everybody had that one.
And of course, there was the man. My voice is going. Of course, there was the good old Flying Windows.
Yep.
One.
After Dark, they were the guys who did it. After Dark.
They did
Screensavers.
the toasters, flying toasters as well.
Yep.
Yeah, After Dark did some really cool stuff. I don't know if they still do, but they used to anyway.
Quite possible. Anyway, thanks for listening and watching another episode of the Old Fart Geeks podcast. Make sure you subscribe in iTunes or your other favourite podcast application. You can also watch our show on YouTube at youtube.com/oldfartgeeks. Don't forget to subscribe, like, message, comment, all that stuff down there, all the good stuff, so you keep up to date with our shows.
Yeah, and watching probably helps, especially an episode like this where there was a lot of visual stuff in it. You can... Excuse me. Oh, man. You can follow us on Twitter. Our accounts are at Warlock, WAULOK, and Mr. Tompkinson, MRTOMKINSON. Our show's account is, of course, at Old Fart Geeks. Music for our show is provided by Free Music Archive. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.